Good evening and welcome to the Drive at 5 on IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station. I'm your host, Roman. We're going to have a good show for you, planned for you today. Please don't forget to stay tuned to IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station after the Drive at 5 for Warriors Talk with Rochelle at 6 p.m. She presents the love and the inspiration for you. And guess what? She does it with a smile on her face. So that's Warriors Talk with Rochelle at 6 p.m. Tonight, my guest is an author of a new book entitled Blessed While Broken. Please give a Drive at 5 welcome to Royce Dixon, Senior. Welcome to the Drive.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So please give IntellectualRadio.com/iHeart radio station your background.
I'm a full-time bailiff. That's my normal job, 8 to 5. I've been married now for, depending on who you ask, and when we get to talk in the book, but I've been married for almost 30 years now. I have a son that's 28, daughter who's 32. I'm a church-going man, author, photographer, artist. I got many different titles. So I do a little bit of everything.
Wow, and it never stops.
It never stops.
So tell us about your book, Blessed While Broken.
Okay, back in 2011, me and my wife, after 18 years of marriage, we got divorced. We just kind of woke up one day and realized that we really didn't know each other anymore. Things had been falling apart slowly because we got. Let me start from the beginning. We got married when we were 20 years old and already had a ready-made family. So we did everything with our kids, from baseball practices to games, everything. And so during this time of our marriage, these first 18 years, we didn't really date. We didn't really go out. We didn't really continue to connect with each other on a personal level outside of our kids. And so after our youngest son, we drove him off to college. We realized up until that point, we realized that things weren't working. We would go days without speaking to each other. And it would just be, it became a normal, days turned into weeks, would turn into a month, 2 months, 3 months, and we would go and not speak to one another in the hallway unless it was concerning the kids. So we drove our son off to college and came back one day, and she asked me, she said, how are you feeling about the marriage? And I told her I didn't know. I think maybe a week or so later, she asked me again. I said, I think I want a divorce. And from there, it was about 6 months to a year, to where I realized I had made a mistake after we got the divorce. So now I'm trying to get back into her good side, and she wasn't going. She was like, "No, you didn't want me then. I don't want to get back with you if we don't have anything to say to one another. If it's not about the kids, we don't have anything in common anymore." And that was kind of a gut punch. So then I would try to find different ways to try to talk to her and be around her or whatever. And it got to the point a week after the divorce, I think our birthdays were coming up, and she talks about me for doing this, but I had a birthday party, and she said I didn't invite her. And then a week after that, or 2 weeks after that, it was her birthday, and so I saw her standing outside, and I asked her, did she want to go on a date? And she's like, no. She's like, can we go for coffee? And I'm not a coffee drinker, but I was just trying to have conversation with her. And she was like, no, I don't want to have anything to do with you. So we got divorced, got back together again. And then once we got back together, I realized that what we went through wasn't just for us, because some of the marriage issues that we had, other people have them. They just don't talk about them. So I went to her and I was like, I think I want to write this book. And she was like, no, I don't want to put our business out there. And then we talked some more. And finally I convinced her to, let's do this to be a blessing to other people, to help other people. So she agreed, and Blessed While Broken was born.
So the motivation for the book, you decided to, other people can learn from your mistake.
Right.
Okay, you had an opportunity a couple of times when the number one thing that when a woman asks, where's this going?
Right.
And you're like, well, yeah. But why you didn't say something then?
I don't know. I think we both were in pain. We both were hurting. And I figured this would probably
But
be
can I
the best
can I
way.
interrupt?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, you're saying hurt. Hurt from what? Is it hurt from, you know, it just seems like when you're married young,
Mm-hmm.
had children,
Right.
okay, the day-to-day operation, the daily routine,
Mm-hmm.
could that be it versus
That
like,
that could have been it. But like I said, I'm a bailiff, I work in divorce court, so I see
so you
unhappy
should know
people.
better.
I see unhappy people all the time,
Okay.
and but what you don't see is what happens behind closed the door when the doors are closed. Why they're unhappy, or how do they get past being unhappy? So with us, like I said, we would go days or months without speaking to one another. So I'm like, if you're this unhappy and I'm this unhappy, why are we together? So let's just rip the band-aid off and be done. And then maybe you can find happiness with somebody else and we can go our separate ways. That was my mindset. But even during the divorce, we had 3 opportunities. The judge stopped the process and was like, are you guys sure you want to do this? Because I know you and it doesn't seem like you want to get divorced. And she didn't say anything. So I was just like, well, just go ahead. Let's just keep going. So then he went a little further and she was crying and I kept looking down. I didn't want to look at her. And she he asked again, are you guys sure you want to do this? And I just kind of shook my head and she didn't say anything. I think it was pride that kept me from saying anything. I've never seen anybody come in a divorce court and be like, no, this ain't what I want to do. You
Could you basically say, you know what? Can I give me 24 to 48 hours to think about it?
Mhm.
Let's sleep on it to make sure, you know.
right.
But soon as she signed on the dotted line and you signed on the dotted line, that's when you realize you made the mistake.
Yeah. Like I said,
Were you like Martin when the freedom train, I'm going to be free or something like
I
that?
think so. I thought things were going to be better once we were apart. You know, she could be happy and I could be happy and we can go on our separate ways. Not it never dawned on me that well, it did dawn on me that when I seen her crying and I seen how hurt she was, it bothered me. I think if I wasn't in love with her, if I didn't really care, it wouldn't have bothered me. But it did. And so then as you know, as she even when she left the courtroom, I went after her to try to talk to her. Didn't know what I was gonna say, but she had just kind of disappeared on me. And so I called her best friend and was like, hey, can you call Lisa and check on her? And she was like, yeah. She said, but you know I'm mad at you, right? So me and her she gave it to me. I'm like, okay, I can take it. But it was a mistake. I realized that day, that moment, even standing up there, I realized it was a mistake. But my pride wouldn't let me stop.
Is the book geared towards men, women, or both? What
Um,
um because it sounds like you were numb. You didn't want to talk. You didn't want to do this,
right.
and it's kind of like, okay, usually if you know, if outside looking in,
Mm-hmm.
I would say you got something up your sleeve. You got a chick on the side. You what made you like numb?
I guess from the not talking and then just going months without having really any interaction with one another. We literally would sleep in the same bed and not touch each other and look at each other, nothing, and walk past each other shoulder to shoulder, and kind of move to the side so the other one could get by. There, it was nothing. It was the house was cold. I guess would be the best way to put it.
So you guys, you didn't say, "Hey, let's come up with some type of vacation. Let's
Nope, nothing,
nothing."
nothing. Like I said, the best way to do it. For me, I've always been one to just kind of bury my feelings. I try to hide them in a sense. And going through this was me suppressing everything and not wanting to deal with it at all. I don't. I'm not a conflict type person. I don't like conflict. So the best way for me to deal with conflict is to remove myself, which is what I had always done. Growing up until this point. And so now, being with her, the best way for me to resolve our issues is for me to remove myself. And like I said, you can be happy, and you can do whatever you want.
So you didn't cheat.
No,
You didn't look at somebody else. You didn't like, here I am, ladies. I'm off. You just basically like what led to that point that the communication just totally broken,
I
as
think
you mentioned in the book.
kind of think both of us are kind of set in our ways. We're kind of stubborn a little bit. Where if you're mad at me, then I'm mad at you, and I'm not going to talk to you. I can talk to everybody else, but I'm not talking to you. We would go play, but and you would never know that we were into it. Well, if you were close to us, you would know because you can kind of feel the tension. But if like we were going to a church or to one of the kids' games, you wouldn't know that anything was wrong with us. But once we get back home, it's right back to being quiet, being silent. So that was difficult, doing that for months on end. And then now, what brought us together all the time is gone because our children are both grown. My son is in Texas college, and my daughter was in St. Louis, I believe, at the time. So that commonality, that glue that we once had, is now gone. It's just the two of us.
But as a man,
Mm-hmm.
not challenging your manhood,
Right.
but as a man, you could say, something's missing. I don't know what it is. Let's go on a trip. Let's go. You mentioned you were stubborn. It was pride.
Mm-hmm.
When did you realize that it was those things that led to the divorce? It was your stubbornness. Something, what I'm getting at is something led, and it's like domino effect that led for your wife not speaking to you and you're not speaking to her type of situation, because it's that what you said, that commonality. And
Mm-hmm.
once that commonality falls apart and that communication falls apart, something led to that. You didn't wash the dishes, you didn't take out the dog. What happened?
There was many things that we just didn't come to terms with, like me playing softball. Perfect example of me playing softball. I started out playing one night a week, recreation, thinking maybe an hour or so. So it's not that much time. Next thing you know, we're playing 2 nights a week. Then my team starts to get really good. We start, bringing in some new guys. We start traveling. Now I'm up to 3 nights a week, 4 nights a week, plus weekends. We would travel, all over the country playing softball. And she's like, Royce, you're spending too much time playing softball. And I'm like, I didn't see it at the time. I'm like, well, it's only an hour. If you just come with me, then we can start spending some more, we'll spend more time together. It's only, like I said, it's only an hour. And she's like, but we got other things to do. And so it wasn't until after the divorce that I realized I started calculating the time that I spent away from the house. You're 8 or 9 hours at work, 30, get home, you get dressed, 20 minutes to the ballpark, an hour at the game, 20, 30 minutes after the game. By the time you come home, it's 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. You're tired, she's tired. She's been dealing with the kids all day long. And before you know it, we're not spending any time together. None. Because most of my time was spent playing softball. That was one of the biggest arguments that we had with me. How much time? It wasn't that she didn't want me to play. It was how she felt with me prioritizing playing softball versus me prioritizing her and making her feel like she's first in my life. She felt softball's first in my life. I didn't see it that way at the time. And so when you begin to add up all the time, you're going 19, 20 hours out of the day. And you haven't spent any time with your wife.
When you come to the realization of you're away from the home,
Mm-hmm.
your wife, she brought it to your attention. You like, it's a hobby. Hey, I got to release some stress.
Mm-hmm.
You were stubborn
Right.
and
I
you
figured it
didn't.
was my man time. That's my time for me. Or if I was going to the gym, what would be the difference? If I was going to the gym working out. But the difference is how she felt. It wasn't actually me actually playing softball. It was just the prioritizing of the time and me putting softball first before her.
The number one thing about relationship or being a couple is communication.
Mm.
Why is communication the key to being in a good relationship or being a couple?
I think we don't. A lot of people don't understand communication. They think just because we're talking, we're communicating. But if you're talking, and I'm thinking about something else, or I'm thinking about my answer to you, we're not really communicating because I'm not really hearing what you got to tell me. She would tell me that, how does she put it? That we communicate to be understood, not necessarily to be heard. She wants me to understand what she's telling me, not just me listening to whatever she got to say. So I didn't get it at the time. When the first 18 years of our marriage, I didn't understand the communication part. And a bad communicator is someone who just shuts down, who won't even express. I was a bad communicator. I didn't share a lot. Like I said before, I would suppress feelings, or if something bothered me, I wouldn't say it. I would just let it go until it got to a point where I was just fed up, or I was just hurt by something else. And now, because she's the closest one to me, she catches everything that I got to say. Well, sometimes it came out the wrong way, or it came out forceful. Not that I ever, I was ever verbally abusive or nothing like that. That's not what I'm saying, but I would take all the frustrations out on her, or whether it was either me not speaking to her or just speaking harsh. She said sometimes you can look at me a certain way and it just makes me feel bad, if that makes sense. Like if you're trying to talk to your children and you can look at, like a dad can give a kid a look and you know exactly what he means. I think that's how I was making her feel those 18 years.
When you come to the realization of how you make her feel, did she do the same thing in how, you know, consider your feelings as well?
There were times where I would tell her, you make me feel like I'm your child, I'm your son, and I'm your husband. With some of the things you say, it's not always how you say it. It's not what you say, it's how you say it to me sometimes. So we both kind of went back and forth with that at times. But she's always been a verbal person. She communicates very well. Sometimes I just didn't know how to take what she was saying because it may seem like she was talking down to me when in fact she might have been she was probably trying to help me. Well, she was trying to help me, especially when it came down to prioritizing the things in my life.
You mentioned shutdown. So if a person shuts down, however, wants to communicate with you if necessary or needed, the thing about shutting down in a relationship or trying to get to know somebody, oh, I'm just going to shut down. Oh, I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk. I just shut my phone off. I don't want, no, I don't want it. How you break that shutdown mode in a person, especially if that person is in your corner
Mhm.
or trying to be in your corner and you're shutting them out. And some people can say, forget it.
Yeah. I look at the shutdown part as building walls. A lot of us, we want to build walls because we don't want to be hurt. But the thing about building that
But
wall,
if somebody
nothing
is
can comes
hearing
in,
you,
nothing comes out.
but if somebody is trying to hear you, trying to get what's inside you out, why shut down on that particular person?
That was just my way of communicating. That was just my way of not being hurt. So I'd rather just shut down and not deal with it. I don't know where it came from, but I recognized it after the divorce when there were times, and I talk about this in the book. There were times when I was in my room, and I moved back in with my parents for a while. And while I'm sitting in the room, I'm having a conversation with God and asking God to show me, to reveal to me all the things that I could have done differently. Because I don't want to take this what happened in this relationship into my next relationship. And the more I talked to God, the more God started to begin to reveal things to me, and I began to see myself. Looking in the mirror was a blessing to me.
What did God reveal?
That I didn't know how to communicate. That it wasn't all her fault; it was mine. There could have been times where we just compromised and came together. For example, if she's upstairs and I'm downstairs watching TV, a lot of times we're watching the same shows. But instead of me coming upstairs or her coming downstairs, I didn't want to compromise that. Or if I would have just helped her around the house with the kids, maybe free up some of her time there around the house, then now she has more time to come and be with me while I played softball. So God just began to reveal so many different things. Like I said, it's all in the book. That I was bad with money. I didn't know how to manage my own personal finances. So how was she couldn't trust me with money because I would spend whatever I had, and then, well, I'll just go back to the bank and use my card because and take the withholding, or not the withholding, the overdraft. They'll charge me $20. That'll be okay. But now I'm in the hole for the next week. So it was just things like that that I just didn't. I wasn't prepared for when I got married.
So you took the single life, in essence,
Hmm.
in single life communication, and you just transferred that to your marriage.
Hmm.
That's a good analysis.
That's a really good analysis. When I was younger, when I was dating, if I was dating a young lady and she got on my nerves or whatever, something happened, that would be the end of it. I would just go, hey, this ain't gonna work.
But here's the thing, and I'm trying to figure this out. When a person, try to have your back, I'm here.
Hmm.
I mean, the king got your back, and the queen got your back, and you're like, no, get away from me. I just don't understand that, because if somebody is there for you, and people say you got to be there through thick and thin. You
Right.
say,
But
no, I'm not ready for that
it's
yet.
easier said than done. When people tell you you got to be there through thick and thin, you don't really understand what the thick and thin means until you're in it. For instance, a lot of people when they get married, they don't think about the vows that they take. They're saying these vows, and they're just repeating after whatever the preacher or pastor or minister, whoever. You're just repeating what they say. You're not actually thinking about the words that you're telling. You're making a vow to not only to your spouse but to God. And a lot of people don't even think about that. They just want to get through the ceremony so they can get to the honeymoon and get on with the rest of the marriage. So we don't take some certain things. We don't take these things serious enough, in my opinion.
Do you think people just get married to just say, "Oh, we once we get to that room, it's on"?
Right? We married now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then for a lot of guys, for a lot of women, well, you don't want to shack with me, so guys, hey, let's get married.
Are you talking about today's or yesterday's?
Today's
You
today.
sure about that?
Well, you probably find a lot of more people shacking these days than you did
Okay.
back in the day.
So
But
my thing about communicating
mhm,
is, how can you communicate with a person that's shutting down, or you come to the realization of someone that is shutting down?
mhm.
How do you communicate with that?
Now I would say, if this isn't a good time to talk, let's schedule a time to talk, and I'll give you can take time to write down however you're feeling, and then we can communicate it that way. Sometimes I'm just speaking for me, I couldn't find the words that I wanted to say to her at the time. So if a conversation came up that was too heavy, instead of dealing with it, I would shut down. Now I would say, if I feel like I can't deal with it now, let's do it tomorrow, or let's do it this weekend at 6 o'clock or whatever. So it gives me time to process what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking, so that I can articulate it better. So I would tell that to any couple. If one person is shutting down, maybe give them some time to think about how they're feeling or what they want to say, because right then and there may not be a good time.
Okay, it's not there, but here's the thing. Don't you think, as an adult,
Mhm.
someone could tell you, okay, it's not a good time. Can I call you back, or you can call me later, or give me a day or something. See how easy that is?
Yeah, I know this now, but back then that wouldn't have been me. Like I said, I don't know where it came from, but I definitely that was just my way of communicating, just shutting down, and we sweep it under the rug, and hopefully we'll get past it.
Let's say you once had a great communication system going.
Mhm.
However, it changes. What change or changes could it be in a relationship or a couple endure? What what led to that? Once you said you guys were good in your 20s communicating, now, however, it changes. Talked about the daily routines.
Mhm.
Could that be an issue or something like that without properly communicating? You said you wasn't really, and I'm just paraphrasing,
Mhm.
really there as a father figure. you wanted to do you, and allowed your wife to do the daily tasks, so forth and so on. Am I correct? Or
The daily task for the children, I was always there for the children. That was never our issue. I was taking the kids to practices and doing all those things. It was just her that I wasn't there for. And then two, the way I grew up, I never saw my parents argue. They would go behind closed doors or whatever and have their issues, say whatever they got to do. We never, as a child growing up, I never saw them argue, so I didn't know how to argue. So I guess that would be that's probably one of the reasons why I shut down, because I didn't know how to handle it. I always thought this is the way things are supposed to be. Things are supposed to be like my parents, the way what I saw in my household. And when I didn't see that, what do I do? Because there's no manual on being married. Nobody can tell you how to be married, because every situation, every household is going to be different. So with not seeing that, didn't have, I don't even know anybody that was, at the time, I didn't know anybody that was divorced, that was older than me. My parents, uncles, all my relatives, they were all married. And I never seen any of them argue. So where does a young man learn how to properly have a debate or a disagreement with his wife? You try to figure it out by yourself. And at the time, again, going back to pride, here I am almost 40. I'm not going to go ask my daddy how do you be married? How do you argue with your wife? It was the pride thing. You suck it up. You figure it out. And after sucking it up for so long, you can only take so much, to where this has to be, we got to do something to get, either we're going to fix it or we're going to go our separate ways. And again, going back to it, I thought she would be more happier, or we would be happier if we weren't together.
assuming
Mhm.
could, lead to bad things.
Absolutely.
So, assuming in the communication factor is a no-no, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
So, my question would be, okay, did you communicate more better than your boys, your dog, than your wife?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely.
What was the difference?
There was no attachment. There was Everything was easy breezy with friends and family, the dogs. You don't have any, and there's if they get mad, oh well. I don't have to. We don't live together. We can. You can be mad. We'll come back tomorrow, play another game, and we'll go right back to being boys. We'll go out and kick it. Whereas when you get into that argument with your wife, now you got to go home and deal with this every day, and everyday life issues are going to continue to continue. They're going to continue to come day in and day out
Until you deal with it.
until you deal with it.
Okay, come face to face with that communication. What should a man do, or a partner should do?
As a partner, what I love about my wife right now is she gives me the comfortable space to be vulnerable. And I'm okay with being vulnerable. I can tell her anything now, because I know she's not going to use it against me to hurt me or anything else. Whereas before, I don't know if I necessarily felt that comfortable in that role with being vulnerable. You never, as a man, you want to always appear to be a man, and what society says a man should be. You got to be the strong one. You can't cry. You can't do this. You can't do that. Men don't act a certain way. Versus now, I don't have a problem with crying in front of her or telling her how I feel or anything else of that nature, because we've developed a deeper friendship. We're more than just friends. Um, and I guess I had all these hidden feelings and that I just didn't know how to deal with at the time. And one thing led to another. And next thing you know, we're standing in front of the courthouse, standing in front of the judge, and he said, "Are you sure you want to be divorced?" And at the time, I'm like, "Yeah, it's easier to be divorced than it is to deal with this."
Some women say men, especially black men, have communication problems within a relationship or being a couple. What do you say?
I think that can be true, depending on the spouse, depending on the woman. Like I said, if she makes a man feel comfortable, then he'll tell her anything. But if there's some reservation there, if he feels uncomfortable or just that this is not a safe place, he's not going to open up.
Well, you mentioned safe place.
Mhm.
What is that safe place? What is that comfortable? You know, you're comfortable talking, so, I mean, there's a lot of people that say, I want to be friends before we get together.
Hmm.
I want to be that best friend type of thing that I can say anything and you don't use against me.
Right.
You mentioned comfortable and then telling anything.
Hmm.
What do you say about that? How does a person go about doing it?
Um, I guess getting to know one another. A lot of times we rush into relationships. We want to rush into this is my boyfriend, this is my girlfriend, instead of building that solid foundation of being a friend. Lisa is truly my best friend. Before I call if something happens, good or bad, the first person I'm calling is her. Versus where before, if something good or bad, I might call a friend, I might call one of my guys, or I might call my dad. But now I understand that in a relationship, that other person has to be your best friend. We look at our relationship now as a team. I can't win if she loses. She can't win if I lose. We either gonna win together or we gonna lose together. But whatever we're gonna do, we're gonna do it together.
What if that other person doesn't see it that way?
Then you maybe need to seek some counseling or you need to talk, find a way to communicate and get your words. But because a good relationship can't work if you're pulling against each other.
And that makes a person feels comfortable telling you anything. You use the method of sometimes you had that feeling that your wife will use something against you. For people listening and watching on IntellectualRadio.com, there are other men
Hmm.
that's like, you're going to use that against me. So how do, I mean, a person get to that point? Because there are some women will use something against you, and that's one of the reasons they shut down in communication point. Am I correct? Or
I think so. I it's difficult. It's difficult to say because men have all these feelings that have been hidden for years because they haven't had a man in their life to show them the right way or the way to go about being in a relationship. I know a lot of men who grew up with without a father or um, without a positive male influence in their lives. So they look to the streets, they look to social media, they look to all these different things to show them what a man is supposed to be like. And so when they get with a woman who goes against the grain, now they don't feel comfortable. I guess would be the word that I would say to where they can open up to them.
in your opinion, what is the number one excuse somebody in a relationship give for not communicating?
The number one reason, that's a good question. I think a lot of men just don't know how to communicate. And they don't. You never know until you get to that point. Because coming in here, we had no problems talking. I met you for the first time. We had no problem having a conversation. But to meet for a lot of guys to meet a woman, sometimes they're intimidated by who they are. Maybe she's a professional, she's really educated, versus you maybe have a high school diploma, and you see her, and so now you kind of feel like you're not worthy or you're not on her level, so to speak, to where you don't know how to use your words because you don't want to feel like you're less than, if that makes sense.
Same thing, vice versa. A woman,
Mhm.
a man, educated or something like that. And they say the number one excuse for not communicating will be,
For a woman, mm, that's a good one because I think for the most part, most women they're born communicators.
are you serious?
And I'll tell you the reason why I say this because I have two children, right? A boy and a girl.
Okay.
If my daughter was to fall down, I pick her up She's little, 2, 3 years old. I pick her up, I put her on my shoulder, I pat her on the back. Oh, tell daddy what's wrong. Tell daddy what's wrong. I love you, daddy. No, daddy make it all right. But when my son did the same exact thing, boy, get up, be a man, brush that off. You're okay. I just taught my children two different things. I taught my daughter how to express herself, and I taught my son to hold in his pain. So that's why I say sometimes women are just born communicators because we've told them all their lives, tell us what's wrong. Whereas we tell the man, be quiet. Why is that? And you don't even. I didn't even realize that I did this to my own children until I wrote the books and I started really thinking about going over what I did, as a father, as a husband, because again, I wanted to be a better. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better father. So I started looking back and looking in the mirror and looking at all these things that I've done in my life, and I'm like, wow, look at what I did to my own children. My son is so much like me. If he gets mad, he shuts down.
Do you think that's the problem right now with men? Because the women of today, some women of today, say, I can't cry in front of my female because she'll think I'm soft.
Mm-hmm.
I can't talk to her about certain things because she'll think I'm soft. I can't cry in front of her. I can't shed no because they think I'm soft. Where did we get that mentality from?
I think society has told us that. From as long as I can remember, I believe society has told us that men are supposed to act a certain way. They're supposed to look a certain way. They're supposed to act a certain. They're supposed to do things a certain way. This is what men. There's no book on what a man is supposed to be like. A man is different at any given time, and you may. If there's nothing wrong with being crying, Jesus cried. Every man that I know, I never seen my father cry until something happened within our family, and he was in his 40s. So we're even maybe see them doing a certain thing. So we're thinking this is what a man is supposed to look like. We have this visual picture of this strong man. I think sometimes we're at our weakest moments as men is when we're truly being our strongest. When I can cry in front of my wife, I'm being strong because now I'm letting her know, hey, I can't handle all this alone. We're in this together. I need you to be with me. We had a conversation the other day, and I felt so much better after I told her that I was going through mentally. And I'm like, baby, this is how I'm feeling. And she's like, well, I'm glad I told you. But I stewed over it for weeks. Like I said, even now, I'm still learning how to be a better communicator. I've been stewing over this for weeks before I even told her. But the minute I told her, I felt so much better because she's like, well, don't worry about it. We'll get through this together. I got you. And once she said that, it was like, man, weight's off my shoulders. I don't have to worry about this thing anymore.
What is the telltale sign if the communication stops in a relationship or a marriage?
When the woman gets quiet, there's a problem. When Lisa stopped talking to me, there was a problem. I'll tell any married man, before you don't want to get to that point because when she stopped talking, she's done. She's checking out, and you don't want her. Once she checks out, it's very hard to get her back if you get her back at all. So when she stops talking, that might be your first sign that something is definitely going wrong.
Okay, what would lead to that point of her stop talking? I mean, maybe she wants to take a break talking to you. What would let you know that she's done talking to you?
Well,
When she start blocking you on social media, when she starts,
that's
you know,
I guess there's many different ways, and usually somewhere along the way, she's giving you clues of things that are wrong, and sometimes as men we just miss it.
like what?
Finances, perfect examples. Finances. She comes to you and tells you, "Baby, we got this bill, and this bill. What do we need to do?" Well, you figure it out. You handle the finances. You figure it out. Well, after so long, that's going to become a problem because she's like, "I'm tired. You handle the finances. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm tired of making all the decisions." And you're like, "Wow. Well, I'm already bad with money, so I don't want to do it, but it's got to be done." And so she feels the burden of the household while you're all fancy free. So those are little clues when she's coming to you about finances or taking care of the yard or taking care of the house. doing the day-to-day things that some, I don't want to put roles on genders. I mean, I don't want to put a gender on certain roles, like cutting the grass. My thing was, I don't want to cut grass. I'm too busy. I got to do this and I got to do that. Well, I was paying somebody else to come cut the grass. But she was like, I really wish you would cut the grass because it shows me that you want to take care of the household. Okay, but in a
I
sense,
would have probably said, you know what, it frees up the time for you.
but I was going to do something else with that free time. I didn't make her feel like she was the priority because I didn't make my house the priority. I put that on somebody else to come take care of the house. So I'm going to go play softball. Oh, I'm going to go hang out with the guys. I'm going to go do something else. So again, it goes back to not making. She didn't feel like she was number one. She didn't feel like she was the priority. She didn't feel like she was the queen of our house because I made.
But did she make you feel like you were the king?
At times she did because she washed, she took care of the house, she took care of the kids. Whatever I did, she cooked, cleaned, she did everything while I went and played softball. What more? What more could a guy want, really? I mean, I know that kind of sounds bad, but as a king, it's your responsibility to take care of the kingdom. And sometimes being the king doesn't mean that you get all the glitz and glory. Sometimes you got to take that back seat and do the small tasks. Like I said, even cutting the grass, getting under the sink and doing whatever you can do, even if you do it wrong, at least you tried it. And I think that was her whole mentality. At least try before you just call somebody else to come take care of our house.
Ivana Vanset, or whatever her name is, went viral last week regarding a married couple and their communication problem. The woman said, and I quote, "Your seed in the relationship is not doing their fair share in the home."
Mhm.
Ivana stopped her in her tracks and directed her how she's supposed to communicate with her husband. My question is right there. When she said your seed
Mm-hmm.
is trying to communicate to someone, is that grounds for an argument? Now, what if necessary a person in a relationship should do when your other half is talking at you instead of talking to you?
I think for for me, it started out talking to me, but when I didn't hear what she was saying, it became now I'm talking at you, and so then that's where I got defensive. But she's always told me these are the things that I need from my husband. And early, when you first get married, you're like, oh yeah, I got you. I'm gonna do all these things. Then you get comfortable in the relationship, and it's like, oh wait a minute, now you're not doing these things. So, honey, can you please do this? Honey, can you please do that? Yeah, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. Give me a minute, and then you never do. So now it went from talking to me to talking at me.
Sometimes when your better half is talking at you instead of talking to you, is it a respect issue for men, you
Definitely,
say?
definitely, I definitely think so. Again, it goes back to my pride when she was. Now that you're coming at me, you're making me feel less than the man that I am, and now that's definitely when I began to shut down because you can't talk to me a certain way. I would tell her what was my saying to her? Don't treat me like a boy, or don't talk to me like I'm a boy. I'm a man.
You're a man, damn it.
That's right. But
So,
again, she had been telling me all these things, and I kept putting it off. And now, and then I'm sure it got frustrating for her because you're not hearing me. You're not doing anything that you said that you were going to do. And when it became talking at me, okay, let me step back. And I'm gonna suppress it for now. But then at some point, I've had a bad day at work.
I know I'm going to get killed for this,
Go.
especially from Brandy and your wife. But you married to a sister, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, normally they would say, they always, some black women have that habit of going there before talking to you to have that understanding. Um, do you feel that way? Because it just seems like some sisters like, ah,
At one point, I did. Early on in the marriage, we did. Like I said, we were young. We were both making mistakes in how to deal with each other. But now, at this point, now she doesn't do that, and we always have we'll have this conversation. Some days we just come home and we just talk. Don't turn on the TV, nothing. We just sit at the table and talk about everything. And so it makes things easier when you're talking about everything on a daily basis and things aren't building up because now it makes it easier, to get things off your chest or because everybody's at a calm level. But in the beginning, when everybody's on 10, when she's on 10, I'm a pretty calm and reserved guy. But then my energy would sometimes match her energy, and now we're bickering, we're butting heads back and forth when it didn't have to be that way. Maybe we talked about these smaller issues when they first happened and not swept them under the rug, then maybe the conversation would have been a little easier. But again, I had to do my part in conversating and talking with her through the issues and not just shutting down.
how can a person repair a communication problem in a relationship?
You got to first want to. When you see that you have this communication problem, you got to want to talk about it. You got to want to be better for your relationship. I want to be better for her every day. And so every day I try to do things to show her, not just with my action, not just with my words, but with my actions as well. I want to show her that she is the queen, that she is my number one priority before anything and everything. Before the books, before the business, before anything, she's going to come first. And everything that I do, I include her. Whereas softball was more, it was excluding her. But now I include her in everything. And so no matter where we go, no matter what we do, she's going to be included. If she can't come with me, we're going to be communicating before and afterwards. We're going to be on the same page at all times. Is what we try to do.
Is counseling the answer to save a relationship in communication?
I th- some type of counseling, yeah. I would say for everybody need to attend a marriage. If you're married, you need to go to some type of marriage conference because it's kind of like getting treatment for your car. You don't wait till your car runs out of gas or out of oil in order to put some oil in it or have it tuned up. You don't wait till the problem get bad in order then you want to try to run and fix it. And I think people have the wrong outlook on marriage, going to a marriage conference. You do these things to help with the maintenance of your marriage, to learn different tools to communicate. I was always one in the first 18 years of our marriage. I was against going to I don't need no counselor. I don't want to go to no conference. I don't want somebody trying to tell me how to run my household. And now I see that I was totally wrong in thinking that because I enjoy going to the conferences now, and I enjoy talking to the people to get their understanding. Like, man, you went through the same thing. I've been trying to recreate the wheel when you had the answer the whole time. I don't want, and that's one of the reasons why I wrote the books. I don't want people to have to go through what we went through in order to realize, hey, you can have a good marriage. You can still have fun. You can still enjoy one another. You can still be boyfriend and girlfriend.
Can you give some suggestions on how a person can repair their relationship communication problem? So, such as in your book, you mentioned your book.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the nitty gritty. You mentioned the problems. What can a person to purchase the book that you want them to get out of it? Let's say I'm going through the problems.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not married, but oh man, this woman's giving me problems here. I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying my best to communicate with her. I mean, men go through hurt too.
Right, right.
They go through pain. They go through the shutdown mode.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of like nobody can give me that,
Right.
and they just like, man, you just left me hanging. I'm trying to communicate with you, brother. So there we, I mean, you see
I
what I'm
see.
saying?
Right.
So you say in the book, what can a guy get from this,
Mm-hmm.
and a woman can get from the book?
First, they can go to Amazon.com and buy Hidden Feelings and Blessed While Broken. And matter of fact, you can get JoJo's Learning Adventure too. But you can get all three books on Amazon.com, or you can contact me personally. But as well as Blessed While Broken, in the back of the book, there's questions that I ask that you can kind of use as a workbook for your relationship to kind of see where you're at. I also give scriptures relating to love, relationships, and marriage. So you can use this book as a workbook in order to better your relationship. When you go to buy Hidden Feelings, you'll see some of the reasons why men go through the things that, or they do some of the things that they do, because you understand that you'll see some of the issues that men face today that they may not tell you about. One of the characters, he grew up without his dad, and so he's raised by a single mom. So he didn't know how to handle certain things because he looked to some of the people in the streets and used them as a role model of what a man should be.
So, can you give us a synopsis of one or two questions that might be in Blessed While Broken?
One of the questions that I ask is, why do you love your significant other or your spouse? What it is about them that you love? If you can't, and then another question is, if you can't see yourself with anyone else, what are you willing to do to ensure that your marriage or relationship works? With me, one of the things that I was willing to do is hold myself accountable to the relationship, meaning that whatever she tells me that she needs, that I'm at least trying to give her what she needs and what she wants, so that she can feel like she's number one. I remind her every day that she's my queen. I tell her every day that she's beautiful. You know, she can have rollers in her hair, but to me, she's still beautiful. It doesn't matter what she's wearing, because to me, she's still beautiful. I don't want her to go out in the world and have to hear that from somebody else, because nobody's going to love her like I do. I think that was one of the things that I told her when I was trying to get back with her, or we were dating at the time. Nobody will ever know you like I know you. I want to know everything about you. Every secret, every fantasy, any and everything that has to do with Lisa, I want to know it on a personal level, so that I can make sure that I address those things if needed.
All right. And one more time, where they can get your books?
You can get all three books at Amazon.com, or you can contact me on Facebook at Royce Dixon Sr. You can go to my homepage. I also have a Hidden Feelings page on Facebook, or you can go to Instagram. I'm at Royce Dixon Sr., author Royce Dixon Sr., or what's the name of the other page? Be Blessed Clothing is my other Instagram page.
Okay, we will. And you'll be part of the author series on September 11th. I will be your host. Yay.
Yeah.
So don't be a stranger on the Drive at 5. Thanks to Earl Winfrey, our executive producer, Wanda, who's behind the scenes. And guess what, folks, on our Labor Day special, we got Felony that's going to perform Felony, the lead singer of Public Announcement, live in studio, Labor Day, the 6th.
Yo,
have a good one, everyone.
Up. We up. Pull up. What up? Put up. We love summer. We up. Pull up. Put up. Put up. We love summer. Let's go out. Get wet. It's your turn. And some summertime, y'all. We up. Let's go. Put up. We about to ride through the hood, y'all. Let's get wet. It's your man, Phil Davis. Check it out. Ride through the hood with me. Let's talk about what goes down this time. Everybody feeling good on the block. New faces here and there. From people that done moved in the winter. Back on the block where everybody's hanging. Every car rolling. It's a new song banging. The smell of barbecue everywhere. Some gangster going on for real. Right there. Them shorties walking around here naked. They eating good and them boys can't take it. The park's filled with conklove and they drinking. The smell of blow in the air stinking. It's one big party going on tonight. You better get yours, cause homie, I'ma get mine. Don't wanna tell you it's one big grind. This is how it goes down. Summertime. We up, pull up, put up, put up. We love summer. Let's go out. Let's get wet. It's your turn. Summertime. We up, pull up, put up, put up. We love summer. Let's go out. Let's get wet. It's your turn. weekend is 10 times the drama. Trying to please your wife and your mama. Straight to the barber just to get cut. Only between female legs. Getting braided up. The hottest spots be acting like the dog. Then off to the mall. We'll do it in the park. Straight to the city for the lights. Then back to the block in the daytime for the fight. Dressed to impress is a must where I'm from. When all it takes is a t-shirt and it was. All them shorties walking around can't take it. But what they eating, but them boys can't take it. Parks filled with car clubs. The smell of blow in the air. And it's stinking. Everything's going down right now. This is how it goes down. Summertime. We up, pull up, put up, put up. We love it. Summer. Let's go out. Let's get wet. It's your turn. Let's some bed. Summertime. We up, pull up, put up, put up. We love summer. Let's go out. Let's get wet. It's your turn. Let's some bed.
Summertime in the shop before the gunplay. Plagued the city, we was hanging out all day. Outside of the block until the birds chirp. July 4th, we in the hood popping fireworks. Fire hydrant on street look like a water park. Playing cards on the porch till it got dark. Backyard barbecue, hit them old songs. Flaming hots, mixed chips and them snow cones. Box Chevy with the sounds and the chrome rim. Ball fade with the waves and the face trim. Barbershop, beauty shop like a talk show. You hear the gossip in the hood at the front door. Block party, softball, this is how it was. Before the drugs and the violence, it was such a buzz. Summertime, Will Smith was the soundtrack. That neighborhood love, trying to bring that feeling back. Summertime, y'all.
Come on. Put up, put up. We love summer. Let's go out. Let's get wet. It's your turn. It's a bed. Come on. Sun up. We up. Pull up.
Yeah.
Put up, put up. We love summer. Let's go out. Let's get wet. It's your turn. It's a bed.
Come on. Summertime, y'all.
Initialize sequence.
You're tuned in to IntellectualRadio.com.